jumping back into the action now on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to update you guys some more on a topic that you guys let me know if you guys are getting a little bit sick of. I think some people around the NFL are getting sick of hearing the name Brandon Aiyuk, in all honesty, on whether he's going to stay with the 49ers. Was he going to go to the Patriots? Was he going to go to the Browns? Is he going to end up on the Steelers or not? What are the Steelers going to offer? It's all getting a little bit confusing, and now it's really dragging on where I thought something was going to happen over the weekend, and something did happen, to be fair, but nothing too definitive in, solving the answer of what's going to happen with Brandon Aiyuk. He's still holding in for the 49ers, and it still seems like a bunch of nothing to the common eye that's not really focused in on all the little things that have been developing over the weekend. But I wanted to touch on it just to kind of get a feel, project on where this could be heading over the next week now as it starts dragging on into this week as well. So going back to Friday, there were reports of another meeting between Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers. It went down in which the reports say that it gave some more optimism to both sides of the organization, or of the negotiation, I should say, that a deal for an extension still could be done if this new meeting happened. They kind of laid everything out there. They were pretty serious and pretty honest with both parties, and there is now new optimism that this extension could get done because it's still being carried out. Nothing has been really finalized with anybody. The Patriots have been ruled out. Reportedly, Brandon Aiyuk said no to them. Now, after this meeting with the 49ers on Friday, then also we had a report by NBC Sports Bay Area's Matt Mayoko. He revealed that Aiyuk rejected a potential trade to the Cleveland Browns that would have sent Amari Cooper, a second-round pick, and a fifth-round pick over to San Francisco if the 49ers agreed to it, which they probably would have, and if Brandon Aiyuk agreed to the contract that the Cleveland Browns were offering to him. But according to Matt Mayoko, Brandon Aiyuk reportedly turned them down, just basically not wanting to be in Cleveland, not wanting to go with that contract extension for whatever reason. People just think he didn't want to go there, so he turned them down, and now it looks like the Cleveland Browns are also ruled out of trading for Brandon Aiyuk, which only leaves the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they seem to be the furthest one away from agreeing to terms with not Brandon Aiyuk, but really the 49ers not meeting their asking price at this point in time. And both of the meeting and the development with the Cleveland Browns, both of those occurred on Friday before Ian Rappaport reported on this situation on Saturday, and now providing us some more intel from the Steelers' point of view, which was Ian Rappaport reporting on the NFL Network's NFL Game Day on Saturday, right before the kickoffs of the preseason games. Ian Rappaport went on to talk about the situation, and he said that Pittsburgh recently made a strong trade offer, in his words, and a strong contract offer to Brandon Aiyuk in the recent developments over the weekend. And he did reference previously to the previous point that the 49ers re-engaged with Brandon Aiyuk. So all options are pretty much still open. With this recent development, you would think that the Steelers are closer, but really nothing has honestly moved too much. Which is the strangest thing about this entire thing, because you hear the Steelers make a strong offer, and today you actually saw, I want to say it was Jordan Schultz from Bleacher Report that said that the Steelers offered Brandon Aiyuk a contract extension that would have him earn around $28 to $29 million per year as a salary, and that's a pretty decent offer. It's not what the Patriots offered at around 30 or at least $30 plus million, which if it was all about the money, Brandon Aiyuk would have taken that, but obviously it wasn't. The Pittsburgh Steelers offered a pretty hefty contract around what Tyreek, around what Jalen Waddle are making currently on their contracts. So if Brandon Aiyuk, like reports suggested before, wants to join the Steelers, and if it's not about the money, that seems to be all squared off. It really just still depends on what the Steelers can offer the 49ers. And Ian Rappaport said that they made a strong trade offer to the 49ers, but still, after, 2 days now, we haven't seen anybody else really touch on it, and really haven't seen anything to really develop after those reports, because still, the 49ers really just want somebody back for Brandon Aiyuk. They want to see a receiver come back to them to sort of replenish any sort of, divot left there in the receiving core right after Brandon Aiyuk left, which is understandable. But with so much back and forth and with so much, reports here, Brandon Aiyuk doesn't want to go there when the 49ers have agreed to a deal with the Browns, have agreed to a deal with the Patriots, but Aiyuk has turned both of them down. Aiyuk wants to go to the Steelers apparently, but the 49ers don't just want to give him away to the Steelers. With all of this hearsay and reporting, it makes me think of just this situation where now there's new optimism about Brandon Aiyuk returning to the 49ers, but I just ask myself, is there, any real, of course the benefit is you keep Brandon Aiyuk, he's a great receiver, but other than that, do the 49ers really gain a lot more with an unhappy Brandon Aiyuk if he does stay there and not extend with them? Because I don't think Aiyuk will extend with the 49ers unless they offer him that money. He'll stay there. I truly acknowledge that fact that he will stay there if they decide to pay him $29-30 million, but the 49ers have been reluctant to actually even do that. So if they're not going to do that and Brandon Aiyuk just has to, put up with another year of staying on the 49ers, being underpaid in terms of what the highest receivers make in the NFL, does that really benefit the 49ers overall to have an unhappy receiver there who just doesn't want to be there, who feels undervalued? And I'm sure he won't, act like a child or mope around or anything like that. He's still going to be a professional if it does come down to that. But I think the morale sort of aspect of this entire thing, the idea that Aiyuk, not that he didn't get what he wanted, but to not be traded and not come to an agreement with the 49ers, quite clearly having the 49ers have a different opinion on where they value him compared to where he values himself, that feeling of knowing that, the 49ers don't see you as that sort of value yet or ever, I think does have an effect on players, and that might affect Aiyuk going forward in the season. And that's something that I would really question in terms of how these negotiations just continue to develop going forward, because it is likely that Aiyuk does stay, but, personally, how would it affect them in the season, throughout training camp, and even in the regular season where the 49ers, they're all so locked in on winning a Super Bowl. That's all they really need to do up until this point. But if you don't have everybody fully invested, you still have Brandon Aiyuk thinking about wanting a contract extension or not really showing too much emotion, not really being fully a team. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not fully 100% focused on the 49ers because you keep thinking about the fact that they just didn't value you this much to pay you like you valued yourself. So that's really my biggest concern with all of this. For them to still hold on to this, I fully know that it is hard to just give away Aiyuk if you're not going to give anybody back. But at this point, it's getting to a point where you don't really benefit too much with just sticking your foot into the ground and saying, well, if we don't get what we want, you're not leaving. And then, that's that. Because Aiyuk still has to go out there, produce for you. And I do know it is in his best interest to go out there and produce for himself to earn that contract potentially next year if the 49ers just decide to let him be a free agent. But this season is so pivotal for the 49ers, If you want to keep Aiyuk, you have to make sure that he's fully invested in reaching those goals with the 49ers. And I'm not so sure Aiyuk will be so fully integrated in getting the 49ers a Super Bowl when they couldn't scratch his back, and pay him what he feels that he deserves. So that would be my only concern. To kind of get these reports out as well, I saw recently mentioned on Pro Football Talk that the fact that these reports are being released on Aiyuk, turning down these offers, kind of make it seem like he's the bad guy, painting him in a bad picture, making the 49ers seem like they're the victims of Aiyuk just being almost like a diva at this point. And with those reports coming out as well, I'm sure Brandon Aiyuk doesn't really like that coming from the 49ers or whoever released this information to make them look like the victims in all of this, where he probably feels like he's been done wrong by not getting paid still up until this point. So really, I think it's getting to a point where I don't think there's too much benefit in keeping this marriage going if there's just no love there anymore, talking about or comparing it to an actual relationship between two people in a couple sort of way. So it is what it is now. It is tough for the Steelers to make a trade up until this point because I just quite honestly don't know what they could offer for the 49ers to budge at this point. But it is still to be seen. This next week is going to be probably more like last week. I don't even want to throw out any more predictions like I do because I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I have no clue where this is going to go. Somebody says something one day, another person says something just a few hours later. You don't know what's going to happen until something actually gets announced. So we're just going to keep monitoring the situation, and if more things start to develop, I'll bring it up and we'll talk about it on the show. But for right now, still no movement, still no actual concrete steps to resolving this entire issue. And it is what it is, I guess. It stinks, but also it was never going to be an easy transaction. So with that in mind, we're going to move on to the last topic on today's show. Some more of the biggest remaining questions in our series that we've been going over, talking about the NFC West teams and some questions that they have to answer heading into 2024. That is coming up right after the break. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.